As a new director for the state prison system, a system that's been overcrowded and understaffed for years.
Governor Pillen announced the new hire late this afternoon. Brian Mastery is live in the newsroom with the latest. Brian.
Lorna and John, the governor began a nationwide search for a new prison director after the previous one, Scott Frakes, retired in October. This is a position with all sorts of baggage, aging buildings, overcrowding, and with no easy answers when it comes to hiring people who want to work inside the prison system.
Nebraska prisons remain in an overcrowding emergency, according to the independent office set up to oversee it, even though the size of the inmate population has been uncharacteristically steady in the past year. At last check, 2 facilities remained under staffing emergencies, including Tecumseh, which houses the state's death row inmates.
Director Jeffries, welcome to Nebraska.
Governor Pillen interviewed 7 candidates and said this afternoon that Rob Jeffries stood out the most. Jeffries spent the last 4 years leading the Illinois Department of Corrections. Before that, 2 decades with Ohio Corrections. He says that at first glance, what he sees in Nebraska's prison system is similar to what's happening in most other states. But before Jeffries proposes any changes, he wants to meet the team and see the problems for himself.
I know that's a priority for us to look at the overcrowding. I know it's a priority for us to look at the infrastructure. But these 2 things are not mutually exclusive. I mean, we still need to increase the infrastructure of our agency along with looking at, what programming and what reentry efforts we can do to improve people's likelihood to stay out in the community.
Rob Jeffries says running a prison system is a thankless job. A key to why he left Illinois for Nebraska is that, in his view, the governor and his team are not only serious about public safety, but invested in the humanity of those behind bars, looking to one day start a successful new life.
Nebraska, remember, is also poised to spend $350 million replacing its oldest prison, the state pen in Lincoln, where they keep having water pipes breaking. It was designed to hold 818 people, but has often been home to around 1,300. The new director said he has experience with new construction from design to build, having done that in Ohio. Live in the newsroom, Brian Mastery, 6 News.
Brian, thank you.